of the contradiction of thinking that your oppressor will participate in your liberation.
Safa sapheli sizwe simnyama iwasafa isizwe saba kavula mola ayinkoka lize wemaye wemolo safa sapheli sizwe simnyama iwasafa isizwe saba kavula mola ayinkoka lize wemaye ngiyakhala safa pheli sizwe simnyama iwasafa isizwe sabantu alamulama ayinkoka lize wemaye wemolo
They have been called by many names: white monopoly capital, enablers of apartheid, land barons. This is the story of one of South Africa's richest dynasties. A family whose empire stretches across South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. Their influence reaches deep into the soil, politics, and the history of this country. It began with Ernest Oppenheimer, who rose to power in the mining world during the early 20th century. He became chairman of De Beers in 1929, cementing his family's dominance in the diamond trade. His son, Harry Oppenheimer, continued that legacy, steering Anglo-American Corporation, the giant that would shape South Africa's economy, and many argue help uphold the very system that divided it. From the late 1940s until the early 1990s, apartheid entrenched white supremacy through racial segregation and violent oppression. Millions of Black South Africans, were stripped of land, opportunity, and dignity. But behind the visible machinery of apartheid stood those who funded, enabled, and profited from it. Corporations whose fortunes were built on cheap black labor and state protection. Founded in 1917, Anglo-American quickly became one of the most powerful companies in the world. Backed by British and American capital, it seized control of South Africa's gold and diamond mines, and later expanded into copper, coal, and finance. By the time apartheid became official in 1948, Anglo-American was deeply intertwined with the government that enforced it. The company's growth came at a terrible cost. Black miners were paid starvation wages, housed in inhumane compounds, and treated as disposable. Attempts to organize and demand fair treatment were crushed, often with the quiet support of both corporate and state power.
Our policy is one which is called by an Afrikaans word apartheid. And I'm afraid that has been misunderstood so often. It could just as easily, and perhaps much better, be described as a policy of good neighborliness, accepting that there are differences between people. But while these differences exist, and you have to acknowledge them.
Nelson Mandela, and certainly we can never mention Nelson without mentioning Winnie Mandela. But I don't agree with a government, a sham government. No man walks out of prison after 27 years and becomes the president unless there's a script and a plan behind the scenes to remove the economic sanctions from whites in South Africa, but no real plan for redistribution of the wealth. The Oppenheimers, the De Beers, and others there sucking the blood of our people. I believe that the invasion of South Africa was an act of unprovoked war. One nation against another nation, and nations must fight for the self-determination. They had no business there, Mr. Donahue.
By By the 1970s, Anglo-American controlled more than half of South Africa's private industry. Behind the gleaming gold bars and glittering diamonds laid the blood and sweat of generations of exploited workers. When apartheid finally fell in 1994, the new democratic government inherited an economy still dominated by white-owned corporations. Anglo-American shifted its image, moving assets offshore, rebranding itself as a global enterprise and distancing itself from its apartheid-era past. Yet the money made from the decade of exploitation continued to fuel its global power.
That's when we decided it was an opportune moment to press for the date for elections, so that at least there could be something that we are able to say to the people. Yes, Chris has died, but the date has come in any way. I think the extremists were a problem because really they did not want change. And even in the course of negotiations, you could feel their impact behind the negotiators.
Even today, Anglo-American operates across 15 countries, generating billions in profit, much of it from regions still haunted by inequality, poverty, and environmental damage. Communities continue to accuse the company of worker abuse, pollution, and unethical practices. The Oppenheimer family remains one of Southern Africa's wealthiest. The fortune built through colonial conquest, racial privilege, and resource extraction. Critics argue that the family continues to wield enormous influence over South African politics and economics. After apartheid, new laws required political parties to disclose their donors. What emerged was a web of influence. Oppenheimer linked contributions flowing to major political parties across the spectrum. Supporters call it philanthropy. Detractors call it the quiet preservation of power. Despite nearly 3 decades of democracy, South Africa remains one of the most unequal countries in the world. A small elite, still mostly white, controls vast amounts of land and wealth. The majority, largely black and working class, continue to face unemployment, poverty, and landlessness. As new political alliances form, the shadow of old money looms large. Families like the Oppenheimers, whose fortunes were forged under apartheid, remain key players behind the scenes, shaping policy, funding parties, and preserving a system that keeps inequality alive. The story of South Africa is one of resilience and betrayal, of freedom won but justice delayed. The gold that built mansions in Johannesburg came from hands that were beaten, broken underground. The diamonds that dazzled the world were mined by men who never tasted their value. Apartheid may have ended on paper, but its economic legacy still breathes through the boardrooms, corporations, and the quiet corridors of political power. This is not just history. It is the living truth of a nation still fighting for equality, a people still struggling to reclaim the land, dignity, and wealth that were stolen under the guise of progress.
The time has come that Africa must learn and realize that the world is not bothered about Africa. The world is only bothered about Africa when they want to take the resources of Africa. Then they bother. They want oil, they bother. And I'm using the word bother in a very deliberate fashion, not in the traditional orthodox fashion. They bother when they want to take our timber. They bother when they want to take our bauxite, when they want to take our coke, when they want to take our uranium. But they don't bother about us. They come to our continent without disrespecting the elephant, and they want to preserve the elephant so that they can come and watch the elephant, but they don't care if 100 Africans die. They want to preserve our monkeys. They want to preserve our leopards and our other animals, but they don't care about us. To them, Africa is a zoo of sorts. And until the day that we Africans realize that we are on our own, we are going nowhere. And the time is now to wake up and to begin to find African solutions to African problems. Is it doable? Yes, it is. But we must wake up from our slumber, because those who are in positions of leadership are quite comfortable with the situation as it is.
I'm saying that everything that came into Africa, every people that came into Africa did not come to do Africa any good. Who are you kidding about friends in the world? Damn it, if you want a friend, look in the mirror. Nothing that ever came from the European mind was meant to do anything but facilitate European domination of the world. And I said there's no exception. Now, Africa has always and still is the prize for the whole world. We as a people have always been the world's richest people, culturally rich, mineral rich. We have always been the prize because we have always had and still have something that other people won't, think they can't do without, and don't care to pay for. No one has ever returned any favors to us. As a people, we have always been hospitable to strangers, mostly the wrong strangers. And what we have to understand now is there is no European answer for African problems. Either Africans find a solution to African problems, or there is no solution, and if you don't find a solution soon, you go back into slavery. In all this world, you have no friends. But if there are a billion of you on the face of this earth, scattered all over the world, what do you need with a friend other than yourself? Why can't you turn inward on yourself? Once we gain confidence in ourselves, and once we look at that person staring back at us from that mirror and like what we see, and don't move from that mirror until you like what you see,